Hariom, everybody. We were on the last verse, 356, of the topic cause effect false. Both cause and effect are false. We talked about mutual superimposition and and we talked about the snake and rope example, where Bhagwan in 349 says that three things happen. The rope is veiled, because of which the snake is seen, because of which there is fear, and these three things disappear instantaneously upon the knowledge of the rope. And in our case, what is happening is the reality, the supreme reality is veiled, because of which there is a projection, and the projection is that I'm the BMI, and because of that projection, there is sorrow, or there can be happiness also. I told you, it has to be understood that happiness is not considered real, and sorrow is only false. Happiness also is the superimposition, and it is false. So this is what is happening in our case, and the nature of the supreme reality is Nitya, Advaya, Nitya, eternal, beyond time, Advaya, absolutely no duality, no variety, no manyness, Akhanda, unbroken. It is described as an unbroken, homogeneous mass of bliss. So the closest that you can imagine to this description of supreme reality is space. Space is akhanda, it's continuous, it's everywhere. And what we do with space is we create walls, and then we say, oh, this is my house, and in that house again we put more walls, and then we say, this is the dining room, this is the living room, this is the bedroom. But in actuality, that space is akhanda only. The minute you break the wall down, you will not know whether this is a bedroom. Previously, this was bedroom and this was living room. They'll all become one space. And in our case, this body is those walls that have been put on supreme reality, because of which it appears to be different. Every body is different, and we see the variety. Just like when we create walls in space, actually the very fact that you could build a wall is because of the space. Because the space was there, you could build a wall. Now that wall itself is becoming the cause for that plurality. Oh, there are many rooms in this house because there are many walls. Now there are many rooms in the house, but actually there are not many. The space is all one, and the walls are they are a superimposition on space. So just like space can never be divided, it is akhanda. That way it will give you an idea of the supreme reality, which is akhanda. These words are used so that our intellect can get a grasp of what Brahman is. Actually, Brahman can never be described with words, but the intellect is incapable of understanding without words. You just can't sit in front of the master and the master is silent. Now in silence, unless your mind is highly so purified and it becomes attuned with the master's mind, you will not understand it. We need words, and therefore these words are used. Akhanda chid ekarupaha. It is of just one. I told you, rupa, form. It should not be taken as there is a form. It is actually formless, but it is just one. Buddhi adi sakshi. When compared to the individual body, it becomes a witness. Sakshi, we can call anybody a sakshi, a witness, when there is something to be witnessed. So when there is a body, mind, and intellect, then this supreme reality, which is actually not a witness, because in the supreme reality, in the totality, there is nobody else. There's no plurality whatsoever. But when it comes to the individual self, because the body, mind, intellect is there, it is called as the witness of the body, mind, intellect. And because it is the witness, it is Sat, Asat, Vilakshana. It is apart, it is different, it is separate from both Sat and Asat. And I told you, it is the substratum for the existence as well as the non-existence of something. So that the supreme reality is the substratum for the knowledge of physics and the ignorance of chemistry that I have. And that is how it has to be understood. So because people get confused, because Upanishad says it is Satchitananda Brahma, but that is a word that is used. But we have to understand it as the underlying principle. It becomes a Sakshi when the Buddhi is present. When the mind is present and the intellect is present and the body is present, it becomes a witness because they are present. But actually, it is not a witness from the higher standpoint. Aham pada pratyaksha lakshita. Lakshitartha is to be understood. It is the indicative meaning of aham. Please understand. That is what Bhagavan Shankaracharya is saying here. When I go on saying I did this, I did that, I spoke, I ran, I walked, what is that I? What is the actual meaning of that I? That is what is to be understood. Aham pada, I told you, aham is that which can never be destroyed. Okay, so aham, when I say I am speaking or whatever, I'm doing something, I'm perceiving, smelling, tasting, touching, is that I the supreme reality? No, it is not. It is the literal meaning of that I is actually your ego. The direct meaning of that I. When I say I'm speaking, it is this jiva, the soul within this body, that is saying that. So it is the ego it is the chidabhasa, the jiva, the ego that is speaking. The indirect or indicative meaning of that aham is the supreme reality, because without the supreme reality, the reflection cannot happen. The reflection is dependent on the supreme reality, so that aham is to be understood as the supreme reality. So in the transactional world, of course, I'm going to say that I am so and so, I am whatever citizen of this country, that country, traveling here, traveling there. I have to say that. I have to say that. There is no ifs and buts about that in the transactional world. But as a spiritual seeker, my understanding should be very clear that yes, I am saying this, but actually I am that supreme reality, without whom whatever that I'm saying would not have been possible. So that should be an understanding at the back of your mind. You must be, we are never even Gurudev traveled and he didn't say I'm nameless and formless and I have no abode. He never said that. He said, no, this is my name. I am this citizen. I am this. This is why I'm traveling. So in the transactional world, we have to use all those words. Pratyak Sadananda Sada Ananda Ghana Paratma. So it is the supreme self, which is Ananda Ghana. That's what I told you. It's a Ghana, dense, homogeneous. So it is a homogeneous mass of bliss. This is words we are using and we are only imagining, but you must not have the understanding that it is something other than me. Because when I explain, even I feel, oh, there is a homogeneous mass of bliss over there and I'm over here. That's not correct. I myself am that homogeneous mass of bliss. Pratyak, very, very close. Pratyak. Okay, so that's where we had stopped. Itham vipashchit sadasad vibhajya nishchitya tattvam nijabodha drishtya nyatva swamatma namakhanda bodham tebhyo vimukta swayameva shamyati. Thus, the wise man, discriminating between the real and the unreal, establishing the truth by the insight of his knowledge, and realizing his own self to be unbroken knowledge, becomes free and himself attains peace. So, the wise man discriminating between real and unreal, note the word real, R is in capital. So this is the highest discrimination, Sat Asat Viveka. So he has discriminated between the small I and the big I. He has discriminated the fact that this I, which is saying I perceive, I do, whatever I'm functioning is different from that supreme reality. And I am that supreme reality, and this small I is false. And it is false because it is a dependent reality. It has a dependence on the supreme reality. The reflection can never have a real reality because it is dependent on the medium and it is dependent on the object. That is the reason there. Okay, so if the object is removed or the reflecting medium is removed, that reflection cannot remain. And the reflection is going on saying that I do this, I do that, I do that, I do that. That discrimination this wise man has gotten, establishing the truth by the insight of his knowledge. So he has heard the knowledge from the spiritual master, he has meditated, and he has come to the conclusion, he has discriminated, and he has come to the conclusion that that is what I am. What I thought, the doer, I was the doer, I was the enjoyer, that I am not. Okay, and having known this, Nyatvad, once you know that, you become free. And freedom is from the freedom of the bondage of samsara, which means that he will never get into this cycle of birth and death. Tebhyo vimuktaha, visheshena muktaha, means he is liberated forever. Like never will he come back into any body, let alone a human, no animal body, no deva body. I told you, there is in the heaven, there is a separate kind of body. In hell, there is a separate. No, he is not going to get any body after that. Swayamevya shamyati. Swayameva, swayam eva. He himself attains that immortal peace. He becomes peace. He's at peace with himself and with the world, knowing that the world is just an illusion. Why are we upset with the world? Because we have taken it to be real. So when somebody says something to us or somebody, whatever, then we get upset because of the reality that we have given the world. But that reality now is taken away from him, which is our goal. Okay. All right. Are there any questions on this particular topic? Any verses? Now he's going to go into the nature of samadhi. Everybody okay? All right. Adnyanhridaya granthehe nishesha vilayastada samadhina vikalpena yada dvaitatma darshanam. When the non-dual Atman is realized in nirvikalpa samadhi, the heart's knots of ignorance are completely destroyed. Samadhi is of two kinds. There is one savikalpa and the next is nirvikalpa. Vikalpa, thought. Savikalpa means sa, with thought, and nir is without thought. To attain nirvikalpa samadhi, you have to go through savikalpa samadhi. And where the start, first of all, samadhi, samadhi, dihi, intellect, sama, equanimous. So this equanimity of mind intellect can be obtained in meditation. And what is meditation? Is to withdraw the mind's attention from the external world and focus it on the self. And the way to focus it on the self is by, the saying is, as you think, so shall you become. So if you go on thinking I'm Jiva and I'm happy and I'm sad, you'll go on becoming happy and sad. But once the mind is purified, the Vedantic meditation says, Aham Brahmasmi is the only thought that should be meditated upon. So now you're saying I am Brahman, and there is duality because there is an I and there is Brahman. And I am that Brahman, but that is where the start is. It is like there is a thorn stuck in your foot. So you take another thorn and then you pull this thorn out, and then that first thorn also is thrown away. Right? You don't keep the thorn by which you remove a thorn. So there is this thorn in our mind which is saying I'm Jiva. Now, how do you remove that? You can only remove that by the antidote, I am Brahman. Okay? So when you meditate on Aham Brahmasmi for a long time, you reach a state of Savikalpa Samadhi where the thought is, there is dharana, dhyana, and then samadhi. So dharana in the Ashtanga Yoga, dharana is the practice of keeping the mind on that thought. That is dharana. Practice. See, our mind is so multi-directional, so fickle, it keeps running in all directions. So if you reach, you have to reach dharana. Then comes dhyana. Dhyana means that now there is the practice of keeping the mind on that thought is over, and the mind is now exactly on that thought, aham brahmasmi. And when you reach the state of dhyana, where there is no other thought at all other than aham brahmasmi, that is what is called as savikalpa samadhi. There is a thought, I am Brahman. That thought is there. That's why it is called savikalpa, with thought. And then when you remain at that point of dhyana for a long time, what happens is, what is dropped is Brahman is dropped, and there is only the I. So it is not I am Brahman, just I, and is the big I. And that is what is nirvikalpa samadhi. There is no thought. There is no thought I am Brahman. That thought is also not there. It will disappear. Like I told you, the thorn that you took from there, you removed the thorn of I am Jiva, then that I am Brahman thorn also now you're going to throw away. As long as you're holding on to that thorn, it is savikalpa. Even that is extremely difficult. Okay, don't think that that is very easy. It's extreme because the mind is very powerful. Bhagwan will say in chapter 6, but not Bhagwan, sorry, Arjun will say that the mind is like wild horses, very difficult to control. He will say that. And Bhagwan will agree. Yes, I agree with you. So it's not very easy. Dhyana also is not easy. Dharana is also not easy. Dhyana also is not easy. But if you reach that state of nirvikalpa samadhi, samadhina avikalpena, that is what avikal is there, that vigraha is there. So if you reach that state of samadhi where there is no thought at all, which is nirvikalpa samadhi, then what happens is yada advaita atma darshanam. That's where you will get a glimpse. And please, getting a glimpse is not seeing with the eyes or the mind. Okay, you will actually become that advaita supreme reality. This darshanam is not a verb there, because darshanam is vision. You'll get a vision of the reality. That means what? There is something there, and now I'm seeing that. No. It's not like that. You yourself are now that advaita Brahma. And what will happen? Why should I reach that? Because ajnana hridaya granthehe nishesha vilayastada. At that time, the knots of the heart will be broken asunder. The Upanishad says that, Mundak Upanishad, this comes in. The hridaya granthi, they are called knots of the. What is a knot? What is an ordinary rope you tie? Now, suppose twist tie we have, or we'll close the plastic bag and then we'll tie it. So a knot is something which ties us. And so what is a hridaya? What is the knot of the heart? Not that the heart is physically tied, not like that. But there are three knots of the heart. There is ajnana, ignorance, kama, and then activity, karma. So there is avidya, kama, and then karma. These are the three knots. Why not? Because they're tying us, they're keeping us tied to the cycle of birth and death. That is why they are called as granthi. Granthi is knot. A knot is something that you tie, you fasten, right? You fasten. So we are fastened, FASTENED, we are fastened to this cycle of birth and death by these three knots. And all these three knots get cut at the same time when you reach nirvikalpa samadhi. Now, in these three knots, the cause is avidya, okay, which then the effect gives the effect of the desire, and effect of desire is karma, action. That's what it is. So what we keep doing is, and that's what is this thing, there is a desire that arises, and then I go on fulfilling it. I act to fulfill that desire, and I think, oh, that way all my desires will be fulfilled. But desires don't get fulfilled by action, because the cause is there. Like I've always given you the example. You have an infection in the throat or the chest, and then now there is a fever. Now you go on treating the fever with Tylenol or whatever, and the infection is there. So the fever will go away for 4 hours, 5 hours, and it will come back again. And this is what is happening with us. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what happens is, it's like an antibiotic. If I was to give you a worldly example, you take an antibiotic and you take care of the infection, and then you do not worry about the fever. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that original ignorance, that avidya, what is the avidya? We already saw in the previous section. The avidya is the veiling of the supreme reality. The supreme reality is veiled. That veiling is removed in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And so once the cause is taken care of, the effects will automatically go away. This is what it's saying. Okay, so in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where there is absolutely no thought, there is only I, supreme I. That is because that veiling is the cause of all these projections. The veiling, once it is removed, there cannot be any projection. All right. Now, the next verse doesn't have a meter, or I don't know the meter. Tvam aham idam iti ayam kalpana buddhi doshat prabhavati paramatma anyadvaye nirvisheshe pravilasati samadhavasya sarves vikalpaha vilayan upagachet vastu tattva avadhritya. That is how the prose order is. Tvam aham idam iti. Tvam aham. Tvam you. Aham I. You I. Idam iti. This that. You I. This that. What is that? This is plurality, right? There is you, there is me, there is this object, there is that person, there is that thing. This is plurality. These concepts are fancied in the supreme self, which is absolute and non-dual. Fancied. What is a fancy? Imagination. They are imagined in the supreme reality, which is non-dual and non-dual, due to inherent defects of the intellect. Why is this happening? Because there is a defect in the intellect. When the real nature of Brahman is realized in Samadhi, all these concepts are dissolved. Now here, inherent defects of the intellect. Intellect is what? Upadhi. Okay. Let me give you the example of electricity. So there is this electricity which is absolutely same in every single country in the world. In my house also, every room has got the same electricity. Now I have these different powered bulbs. So I have one room where there is 100-watt bulb, and one room where I have only 40 watts. And then one, actually I have a night lamp which is 0 watts. Okay. So what is happening? You, I, me, this, that means the light in this room is not very bright. The light in that room is very, very bright. And with the 0 power, it's hardly any you can see anything. What is being said is, if you see these different intensities of light, there is nothing wrong with electricity. Where is the dosha? Where is the defect? The defect is in the upadhi. The bulb is not powerful enough. That is what is being said here. In the Supreme Self, there is no duality. There is no nana, I told you. There is no variety. It is non-dual. And yet, I go on saying, this is me, this is you, this is this object, this house, that house, this. Why is this happening? And here he tells, it is not a defect in the Supreme Self. There is no defect in electricity, but definitely there is a defect in the intellect. Definitely there is a defect in the bulb. The bulb is 40 watts. So now you cannot get bright light. The bulb is 100 watts. You're getting LED now. Now latest is LED bulbs, right? So it's even a better bulb, they say. So this is what is being said, which is due to inherent defects of the intellect. Inherent, they're there when the intellect came into being. These defects, there is defect. That's why only we got birth. Very fact that birth has happened, we were born, some defect, otherwise you would have been realized and we would not have had any birth, but we have got the birth. Okay, no problem, no problem. We are now on this path. Now understand what the defect is and try to correct it. That's the idea. That's why he's saying, when the real nature of Brahman is realized, I told you, in some here samadhi means nirvikalpa samadhi, when you reach that stage of nirvikalpa samadhi where only what remains is Brahman alone, the capital I alone. It is not I am Brahman, it is only I, and the alphabet I, capital I. Okay, so when you reach that, all these defects will vanish. This is what is being said. Okay, is really all these concepts are dissolved. It's a concept, not a reality. It is not a here. Think about the example that I give you about space. That is Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj's example, because he was told by his master, Soham, meditate on Soham, I am that. So he always gave the example of space and walls. So in space, there is absolutely no duality. It is akhanda, it is advaya, non-dual space. Now, what I have done is I have created walls. And I told you the creation of the wall was possible because space was present. If there was no space, where could I have created the wall? But there was space. And I created a wall in it. And then I started saying, this is the bedroom, this is the living room, this is my den, this is my kitchen, this is my this, that, this, that, this, that. All this you, me, this, that came after the upadhis went up. If the upadhis are dropped, and they will be dropped in nirvikalpa samadhi, you will come to realize that there is only that non-dual Brahman. Okay, clear? All right. Next. Shanto danta param uparata kshanti yukta samadhim kurvan nityam kalayati yati swasya sarvatma bhavam tena vidyati mirajanitan sadhu dagdva vikalpan brahma kritya nivasati sukham nishkriyo nirvikalpaha. Serene, self-controlled, perfectly withdrawn from sense objects, steadfast in silently enduring, struggling to attain samadhi, the seeker always contemplates on his own self as the self in the universe, destroying by these means all imaginations which arise from the blindness of ignorance. He lives blissfully as Brahman, free from egocentric actions and oscillations of the mind. Shanto, Danta, Parama, Uparata. These are the qualifications. How do I get to that state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi? Bhagwan is again explaining, you need Shanti, Sama. This Shanto, Danta is Sama and Shama and Dhamma. Shama, control of the mind. Dhamma, control of the senses. We have talked about this. That's why this control of sense organs is extremely important. In chapter 3, now the last verse, Bhagavan is going to say, therefore, these organs, these sense, there is no alternative. There is no alternative. Okay, so that's why these are being repeated. Why is Bhagavan repeating? Why would you, when we, suppose if your child just turned 12 and now you're first time in your life, you're handing him over the key to the house. How many times will you tell him, make sure you don't lose the key, make sure you lock it in your locker. Don't you repeat? Don't you repeat? You're not just going to say once, hey, and then, no, 100 times you will do. Don't forget, microwave, you microwave, don't touch the range when you come home. I won't be home, but don't start the range. Well, the food is there, you just warm it in the microwave. Then just stay home and study and don't go out. Why? Because the child is young. So this is why Bhagwan For him, we are children. We are probably in kindergarten only as far as Bhagavan Shankaracharya is kindergarten or below there. So he's repeating, he's repeating. Please, Shama Dhamma, control of the mind, control of the senses. Then Parama Uparata, Uparati, withdrawal. In Tattva Bodh, the definition of withdrawal is don't just stay doing your own duty. Don't bother with other people. Withdraw. It's a mental withdrawal. Kshanti, forbearance. Kshanti yukta samadhim. Kshanti, forbearance. I will bear no matter what. This is a very difficult path. So no matter what comes, I will. Even if Bhagwan repeats, I will understand that it is for my own good and not get bored. Bhagwan, I understood that. You said that. No, already. No. It is out of compassion that the spiritual master is repeating. We must understand. And think about it. Even after that much, are we able to do that? No. So we want hammering. Maybe at some point, the nail, you put a nail, do you just do once and then you leave it? And then you hang your picture? Or you hammer it a few times? So we need that hammering, huh? So you must not get bored or angry at Bhagwan Shankaracharya. Like I know all this is repeat. Most of you have heard it, right? But please understand that is what it is. And remember your own children when they were how many, even now we tend to tell, sometimes we forget and we tell our older kids also, don't do this, don't do that. So this is what it is, okay? So this is Kurvan Nityam Kalayati Yati. Kurvan Nityam. Constant vigilance. Gurudev also has said we have to have this see, we fall. So with Kurvan Nityam, always you control the senses, always you control the mind. We'll be talking about this in detail on Sunday. Yatihi, seeker. If there is a big if you're striving to attain that supreme, understand that it is the highest goal. Param, I told you, there's nothing more superior than that. Now that supreme goal you're trying to achieve, then that much hard work also has to be put in now. Right? The higher the goal, the harder you have to work. So this is hard work. Kalayati, swasya sarvatma bhavam. So struggling to attain sarvatma bhava is sarva atma bhavas. The self in me is the self in all, is sarvatma bhava. That is the meaning of that word. The self in me is the self in all. I am the substratum of this entire universe. That is that thing. So this seeker is trying to achieve that understanding. Okay? In which tena avidya timira janitan sadhu dagdva vikalpan. Tena. In that sarvatma bhava means in the realization that the self in me is the self in all. Avidya timira janita sadhu. Avidya, ignorance. Timira, tamas, darkness. The darkness of ignorance will get burnt. Not physically burnt, but it will be removed. Dagdva, that dagdva word is used. So it will be, the dagdva is burnt. Vikalpan. So all the thoughts, what thoughts? The one that are creating multiplicity. I am different, you are different, I am this, you are that, this way. All these variety of multiple thoughts will get dissolved, will get burnt. That is avidya. To think that I am different from somebody else is ignorance. From the highest standpoint, the self in me is the self in him. But when I keep saying that, no, you are inferior to me or you are superior to me, whichever way, you're different than me, it is avidya. That avidya will get burnt. Brahma kritya nivasati sukham nishkriyo nirvikalpa. Then, having attained that Brahman, he will nivasati sukham, happily live after that. He will very happily. Those who are realized masters are really the most happy people without any belongings. There is no worry. Somebody will steal this. Somebody will ask for this. No worries at all. Nishkriyo nirvikalpa. Nishkriya, without doing anything. Here we should understand the realized masters have a choice. Scriptures give them a choice. Some realized masters physically don't do anything. And Raman Maharshi is the example. Physically don't do. The other example you can say is the Sargdat Maharaj. Even he realized, he continued his same job of making bidis, he continued. And both of them are nishkriya. They're not acting. Why? One is physically only not acting, so absolutely no doership, which is fine. The other one is physically acting, but absolutely no doership and enjoyership. So that action, no matter how much action he's putting out, it's not binding him. It is like a burnt rope. That is the example they give. There is a rope, you know, when a rope burns, it'll maintain the shape. Its shape it'll maintain. If it'll maintain. But now, is that rope any good for tying anything? Because the ash will remain like that. You know, if it burns, it'll remain like a rope, but it is not capable of binding. That is how they become nishkriya. So even if you take Swami Vivekananda or Gurudev, Tapon Maharaj, he chose, but whoever disciples approached him, then he taught. So little bit action he did do. But otherwise, even he was nishkriya. He didn't want to come and save the world, or he didn't want to do anything. If somebody approached him, Gurudev came to the masses. That's what he wanted, which is fine. That is fine. That is the prerogative of the realized masters. Scriptures give them the freedom. You want to act, you act, because that action is not binding you, so it doesn't matter. So we also can do that. We can practice karma yoga. That's why chapter 3 becomes extremely important. We can practice karma yoga, and we also will slowly get out of bondage. Okay, free from egocentric actions and oscillations of the mind. So when the action is not Rajo Guna Samudbhavam, as Bhagavan says in chapter 3, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajo Guna Samudbhavam. This action that is coming out of a realized master is not born out of Rajas, it is born out of Sattva. And therefore, there is no oscillations of the mind. It not being a selfish desire, whether that action will yield results or not, he is not upset. We are upset because our desire is coming out of Rajoguna. So when I don't get that desired result, I am upset. Okay? Samahitaye pravilapya bahyam kshotradi chetasvamaham chidatmani taeva mukta bhavapasha bandhehi nane tu paroksha katha bidhayinaha. They alone are free from the bondage of birth and death, who, having attained samadhi, merge the objective world, the sense organs, the mind, nay, the very ego in the Atman, the knowledge absolute, and none else, who blabber that indirect knowledge. So I told you where is the freedom from? It is from the bondage of birth and death. The knots are, that is what they're tying us to, birth and death. Now that knot is destroyed, there is no more tying to birth and death. And that is real freedom. Real freedom is that. We don't understand. We think freedom is whatever I can do, I should be allowed to do, or I will do, and now I'm very free. That is not freedom. Okay. Attained samadhi, again nirvikalpa samadhi, merge the object, merge not a physical merging, but a falsifying of the objective world. Physically, I told you, the world can never go anywhere. The world remains exactly as is for a realized master and an ignorant person. The battle of Kurukshetra was exactly, all the people were standing exactly where they were before the Bhagavad Gita discourse started and after the Bhagavad Gita. Nothing changed. Nothing externally, nothing changes. So what is this merging? This merging is a shift in understanding. So previously, what I thought was extremely real is now falsified. And therefore, world and is specified sense organs, mind, nay, the very ego. The ego is, we think ego was the subject so far. When I said I see everything, who is the subject there? The ego is the subject, and this world is this outer world, right? So objective world, not only this world that I see, but my own body, mind, ego is also now falsified. So it is like the burnt rope, which cannot tie him anymore. And none else so those who have There are two words, jnana and vijnana. Jnana is what we have heard. What we are hearing right now also is jnana. But unless the realization happens, it is information only. I've given you the example. Even in the material world, we know so many things. But if you're not going to follow or work towards those things, then that knowledge is only information. So knowledge has to be worked on, and when it gets worked on, in this case, when the seeker is practicing samadhi and then gets vijnana, wisdom, he realizes his own self, then he will not talk. That is the difference. The one who has this knowledge only, who is not, will talk. That's why when anybody else, death happens, I'm telling you, we know. What is there to get so upset? His sister died, so what? I'm like, okay, now he's upset. So, what will happen? Something happens in your family, then you tell me whether you're upset or not. This is very dangerous. We were actually specifically told by Guruji. He said, if you, in Sandeepni, we were told, he said, if you go for a funeral or somebody dies, don't start saying this, oh, don't worry, body is what, soul, and that's not the place. That's not the time. So that's why the one who has this information, information only, will go on talking. Once you realize, you actually don't talk. I read somewhere the other day that the one who keeps on saying, I'm very happy, chances are he's really not happy. Why are you going on telling everybody, I'm very happy, I'm very satisfied? You don't have to tell. But if you do, okay. Upadhi bhedat swayameva bidhyate chopadhyapohe swayameva kevalah tasmad upadher vilayaya vidvan vaset sada kalpa samadhi nishtaya. Through the many conditionings, a man is apt to think of his own self as full of diversity, but by removing these, he gains his own immutable self. Hence, for the dissolution of his conditionings, the wise man must devote himself to the practice of nirvikalpa samadhi. Conditionings here is upadhi. Upadhis. So because of these, through the many, because of this upadhi, because of this wall, I'm calling this area as den. Because of the wall, because of the upadhi. If I break this wall, what den? There is no den, then there's just a passage. Because of the walls, I'm calling this as a bedroom or a kitchen. So because of this wall, I am calling myself as the body. If you break this wall, not physically, distraction of body is not going to take you anywhere. If you dissolve, if you falsify it in your own mind, if you come to realize that you're not the body, but you're the supreme self, then at that point, all the ignorance will be removed. He gains his own immutable self. So the example that Upanishad gives us of the munja grass. Munja grass is a grass which has got some layers. So you peel the layers off, and inside there is the sweet stalk. And that's why always even onion you can peel, but if you go on peeling the onion, nothing remains. So self is not like that. Don't think. People think like, if I peel off the layers of body, mind, and intellect, nothing will remain like the onion. They say, no, it's not like onion, it's like munja grass. So you peel the layers. Peel the layers means what? Transcend them. Transcend the layers. Okay? One by one. And when you reach that, you will understand that you are eternal. That is what happened to Raman Maharshi. He peeled off the layer of the body, then the prana, then the mind, he transcended, intellect. And suddenly, after this, he realized, I'm eternal. I will never be hungry. I will never want anything. And he said, then why do I need an education? So he left everything. Next year at 16, he took off. That's what will happen. Okay. So as long as these conditionings are there, and I go on thinking that I'm the body, of course the body is going to feel hungry. Then I need food. What is the mind will get hurt, the mind will feel happy, the mind will then all that happens to us. So when these conditionings are peeled, when the upadhis are peeled, are transcended, peel means not physically peeling but transcended. Okay, we'll do one more. Sati sakto naro yati sadbhavam hekanishtaya Kitako Brahmaram Dhyayan Brahmaratvaya Kalpate. One who is attached to the real becomes the real through single-pointed devotion, just as the worm contemplating intently upon the wasp, Brahmara, is transformed to become a wasp. This is our famous saying, as you think, so shall you become. If you think, so just as that worm, because that worm is inside that cocoon, and I think in the whole that that thing is there stinging it, so it constantly is thinking of that, and finally it converts itself into this wasp. The wasp is stinging that that insect in the cocoon. That's what it is. This example is there even in Atma Bodh. So because, and the fear is there, and then constantly there's a fear of that wasp. So constantly that thought is there. See, even in the case of Ravana, Kamsa, they were constantly thinking of the Lord out of hatred, out of jealousy, Shishupala. So ultimately, where did they go? Ultimately, they reached God. That's why it is said that even if you think of God out of hatred, out of jealousy, out of anger, ultimately because you're thinking of God. But then the thing is that when you're thinking of the Lord with negative emotions, can you be happy? So even though you're thinking of the Lord, you're unhappy. Ravan was very unhappy because constantly he thought he was thinking of, because he had done something wrong, he was thinking. Shishupal was also very agitated all the time. He thought Krishna was. Kamsa was afraid. So that when that negative emotion is there of fear or hatred or jealousy, and even though you're thinking of the Lord, ultimately you will reach the Lord, but your whole life has gone in negative emotions. And that's why they say, think of the Lord with love. So, love is a positive emotion. When you think of the Lord with faith, with devotion, with love, you will reach the Lord. You will become the Lord. You will become Brahman. This is what it is. One who is attached to the real becomes the real. The real is R is capital. So it is really real. That means it's Brahman alone. There is only one thing which is really real, and that's Brahman. So if you keep on thinking, you can think out of hatred also. You can think of jealousy also. Think out of, anger, whatever. So here the explanation Gurudev has given, just as every pupa is a potential wasp, so too every man is potentially divine. Okay, but a great deal of discipline and sadhana has to be put in before the efforts bear the fruits of spiritual maturity. This pupa gets stung by the wasp all the time, so it's always in pain, and it keeps thinking of the wasp, and it becomes the wasp ultimately. This is what Bhagwan is saying here. Any questions so far? There is, let's quickly do, the others are a little bit of a repetition of before. Kriyantarasa Timapasya Kitakaha Dhyayan Yalibhavam Rikshati Tathaiva Yogi Paramatma Tattvam Dhyatva Samayati Tadeka Nishtaya. Just as the insect, renouncing attachment to all other activities, thinks intently upon the wasp and metamorphoses into one, so too a yogi, meditating upon the nature of Paramatman, attains it through his single-pointed devotion to it. Same idea continued. As you think, so shall you become. So if you keep thinking of the Lord, you will become the Lord one day. You are actually already the Lord, but we don't know. We are Brahman. We have that divine spark in us, but it is veiled, it is covered, we don't know it. So this is the way. Tathaiva yogi, just as that insect becomes the wasp, constantly thinking of the wasp. So also the yogi is one who strives here. Yogi, one who is trying to join. Yuj, coming from yogi is also coming from the word yuj, to join. But here there is the striving aspect is there. Yati, the seeker who is trying to become one with Brahman, should constantly think of Brahman and detach from the world. We are unable to detach from the world. That is our problem. The mind, in Dhanyashtakam, Guruji said very beautifully, he says the mind is so extroverted because of the senses that we go away from ourselves, because the mind pulls you outside. The mind has to be brought in, and that's where that Shama Dhamma comes into play. Every single time if the mind is running out through the senses, then you're getting further and further away from your own self. So that's why if you control it and keep it inside, within, become introverted, you will keep thinking of the Lord. अतीव सूक्ष्मं परमात्व तत्वं न स्थूल दृष्ट्या प्रतिपत्तुमर्हति समाधिनात्यन्त सुसूक्ष्म वृत्त्या ज्ञातव्यमार्यैरति शुद्ध बुद्धिभिः. The real nature of Paramatman is extremely subtle and cannot be reached by the gross outgoing tendency of the mind. It is accessible to noble ones with extremely pure intellects through samadhi brought about by an extraordinary subtlety of the mind. The space is subtle. Why? Because we actually cannot see space. Paramatma or Brahman or Atman is even subtler than space. So if you want to see, even if you take the example, like they give the example for a realized master, they give the example of rivers merging into ocean. Once the river merges into the ocean, you cannot distinguish. It'll become one. But the gross and subtle, you put wood into the ocean, that wood is always going to remain separate. What is gross, it cannot merge with the subtle. It cannot become one with the subtle. And the body and mind and intellect are gross as compared to the level of subtlety of Atman. The BMI are very, very gross. And so if you remain at the level of BMI, you can never merge with Brahman. That is the idea. So you have to make them subtle. And how you make them subtle is body is very gross. It can never be subtle. Because if other people can see the body, you yourself can see. So you need to transcend. And subtlety is pervasiveness. So purity is subtlety. So purity of mind, purity of intellect, that means you're making your mind more and more subtle. And with such a subtle mind, when you meditate on the reality, you will reach that reality. Because it is very subtle, you cannot remain gross and try to merge with the subtle. You cannot remain like a log of wood and try to become one with the ocean. You're going to keep floating. But if you become like water, fluid, liquid, like a river, then once you merge. Then there is no separating. Okay, so we'll stop here for today. There is a few more verses on this, so I can't control the thing anyway. So next time we'll start with 362. Are there any questions regarding what we have seen so far? Pretty simple it should be now, because there is.
Yeah.
Yes, Mohini.
It is simple though, difficult to follow. But when you are serving people, and you are serving just to get them out of, you are serving to make their life better in whatever way, right? So at that time you are serving the body.
Okay, so that is where Karma Yoga comes in. No matter what you do, you cannot change anybody else. The reason for your service should be to purify your own mind. That becomes Karma Yoga. Otherwise, you're at the level of karma. You're not going anywhere. You're very gross. You're saying you're doing it for their body, to improve them. That's it. You're at the very gross level. So the idea should be that I want to serve so that I can purify my own mind. That becomes then Karma Yoga.
No, mind will get ultimately purified when you think whatever I am doing for the Daridra Narayan. Let's put it that word.
You have to start with that. You're going the other way. The mind will get purified and then you will think, no, 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 no. You have to start, I am serving Daridra Narayan. Then the mind will get purified. You've got it backwards.
But you are serving, nevertheless, you are serving the body.
Serve.
Yes.
Serve the body. But what is your thought process behind it?
Serve the Narayan.
So you serve with that. Yeah. Then the mind will get purified. So if you're serving just to purify your own mind, you will not worry whether that person said thank you to you or not, acknowledge that you have served him so much. That will not matter to you. If it matters, know that you're not doing karma yoga. If you feel bad, oh, I did so much, never even said thank you, then it's not karma yoga.
What happens that it's a usual normal condition sometimes that you are in a situation that you have done a lot. I'm just telling you from a life's experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think you have done a lot.
Yeah.
But in that situation, the person for whom you have done is giving thanks to everybody else.
Yeah.
But you are being ignored, or you feel that you are, I know it hurts, I know I shouldn't, but nevertheless,
it hurts. It hurts. Yeah, correct. So that's why we need this knowledge, and we need to know.
Well, one thing is for sure, these books do help to calm you down.
Yes.
They do help to calm you down. They don't make you to linger on there, oh, what happened to me, poor this.
Yes.
It does help, but to reach this situation, that not to think about about others thanking you.
Yeah. See,
sorry, everybody.
Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry. What I wanted to say was, only after COVID started and Zoom session started, you have started with this studies, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you need a lot. Now you have started, which is good. So if you would have started at Balvihar level, then no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have a long way to go.
It's Jayaji, as it's something like when you keep telling us, when you feel hurt, somebody hurts you, then think it is the mind getting hurt. It's my ego getting hurt. Don't think I am the ego. Then you are going ahead in your spiritual study.
Correct.
So you just think it is the ego getting hurt, but don't worry. Just let it go. It's another person. That ego is another person. Don't ignore that person.
Correct. And ego is false. That is what you should remember.
Yeah.
That this hurt that is being felt, the entity itself is false. So how can that hurt be real? And you have to train your mind to think like that. Train your mind. I also get hurt. I also feel hurt even at this stage. But I'm like you said, is the ego. I know it is the ego that is getting hurt, right? So that part, we have to come into that situation right away. All right.